Good afternoon, morning, evening, or night, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alex, and this episode's subject comes in from Tetsuo Lauliet. I think that's right. Alex, I'd like to know your opinion on animation and whether or not you think it's a form that can be looked at seriously in a mainstream media. Not like a comedy or a kids' movie, but say making American Psycho or Full Metal Jacket animated. Do you think it could have the same effect on our culture as live action films like 12, I think you mean Years a Slave there, and Boyhood? I'm a huge fan of animation. With that being said, I immediately have to just sort of put this down and say, I can't see it happening. It's sad and it's frustrating and annoying, but the perception of animation in general in the Western culture is that it is a kids thing, that it is just for Pixar animated movies and just for kids TV. That's what is something I do respect about the way Japanese culture is far more accepting and of animation, because they realize that it's you can be so creative with it because there's nothing really holding you back but the imagination. Like you with the CG and everything, there's no middle ground, is there? You've got your live action things, then you've got your kids animated things, and there's nothing in the middle. I do think what it would take would be some sort of huge, maybe original movie, maybe based on something like you say, maybe inspired by a popular book or something that is a bit more adult. But it would have to be financially viable for these companies because it's such a huge risk and they're really expensive to make these beautiful like 2D animated movies, or even 3D like at this point. But we're not even at a point yet where we can get good video game movies. Like the Bioshock movie couldn't be made just because it couldn't be rated R because no studio wants to back it because the money they're just not going to get their money back. But even then, there's no excuse for it because you can still make an adult movie that maybe isn't super violent, maybe doesn't have swears left and right. It can just be a serious, good movie. I think that is why anime is such a big deal in the Western audience, because it's a market that isn't being covered by our studios and things here. If you think about the times where, say, for example, like that movie Titan AE from 2000 and even the Tintin movie from a few years ago, they're still very much sort of aimed for a younger audience, but they are a little bit more serious, a little bit more adult. And it just doesn't pay off for the studios, so they just don't bother doing it again. They make the money from these dumb kids movies that all end with fucking dance sequences at the end, and that works for them. So they just aren't motivated to even bother trying, and it really, really sucks because I think animation has easily the most potential to be the most powerful and best way to tell a story. Any story, you're not limited by anything. You're not limited by, or apart from a budget, but you're not limited by any physical thing. You can create anything in your mind. Look at the director Brad Bird. He directed The Iron Giant, The Incredibles. Especially The Iron Giant, that was like a really, really good animated, a little bit more serious, still very much kids, as I say. But again, it just made no money. So now he's had to move, he's like been forced almost to, if he wants, he's moved into live action things like Mission Impossible, like the upcoming Tomorrowland, just because he can't get a budget, he can't express maybe these ideas, these grand ideas that he might have. I have nothing to back that up. I mean, that's just a theory of mine. He might be happy moving into the live action space, but I do feel like there needs to be something like the way Star Wars, when it came out, the way it impacted the entire industry, all these sci-fi movies like Alien and all these things inspired and funded because of the popularity of that movie. All it would take is one ballsy, maybe by accident, somehow this great animated movie that people really like, adult more so, like maybe even if it was just a 12, maybe if it was just a young adult, if that was just enough and it was extremely successful, maybe that would be enough to inspire all these other studios to start. That's what it would take. It would take that one spark that would ignite the flame. But until then, we're just sort of going to be left in this stale, predictable landscape of children's animated movies. And that's not to say that there aren't any good children's animated movies. There are certainly tons and tons of really good ones being made, but it is a little bit upsetting that it is always for kids, when there is an audience there for, and there are people that want it. That all these anime fans, that's why they're going to that. And of course, there is anime you can go and find if you are looking for that kick. But it really is a shame. So, what do you think is going to need to happen for animation to really be taken seriously in that sort of way like it is in Japan? Do you think it will ever happen? What do you think needs to happen for maybe it to be taken seriously in that way? Tell me in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching. All comments and ratings are very much appreciated. Make sure you leave a suggestion for future Jar Blabs. I said that weirdly. I'll see you next time. Bye! Equivalent of reality television. They're easy to watch, they're easy to relate and interact with. So that's sort of the mentality I have about it now. I mean, there are YouTubers that maybe I disagree with, that I don't like, that I don't enjoy, that I might think are untalented maybe, that I may not just simply like their content, but I just don't watch it. I don't interact with it, I try to not even mention it ever. I mean, if I could go back, I probably would.